Hey everybody, welcome back to Quali-Tea Time, broadcasting now from a brand new perspective. And that leads into, very neatly, our first piece of news. So, we have a new camera. It is in fact my very first DSLR camera, the Canon EOS 2000D. It's not top of the line by any means. It's not like a straight up, making films kind of camera. In fact, I have struggled already to record this particular video because for some reason when it's over on the tripod there, it's will record for about 4 seconds. I don't know why. It actually has a built-in software limit of only recording for half an hour-ish or 4 gigabytes, whichever it hits first, which on 1080p is about 10 minutes. So yeah, I could record much longer at 480p, but it's 2019 and that would never work. But it is, legit the first, full photography camera that I've ever owned, and it's high quality, and I can hook it up to my computer like I have right now, and use it basically like the webcam, for a battery life of about 2.5 hours. So you're probably still gonna see the Logitech C920 used in streams and such for the foreseeable future, but, still, drastic improvement in quality over the webcam. So yeah, I mean the C920 is still good. The C920 is still industry standard in a lot of ways, and it's affordable as well. So you will generally see if some YouTuber with a face cam on puts out a picture of their workstation, you will generally see that there is a Logitech C920, but there's also a lot of streamers and YouTubers who will use actual DSLRs like this, and I am proud to have finally made that upgrade. It's not cheap, but it turns out there is some kind of upside to being underpaid universal credit, the stuff that you need to live and actually survive and feed yourself and whatnot for 3 months. And that is that after surviving that, they give you it all in a lump sum that makes you actually able to afford your dreams that you've been trying to get to for like a year. So yeah, kind of happy with that. Very happy with that. And it means it actually functions on battery. It actually can be disconnected entirely from my computer and taken elsewhere. And whilst the video is something I'm still tinkering with and trying to figure out, photography is still very much 100% functional in this camera. So I can go to a park and take photos there, and I am the last week or so of me having this has involved a lot of gushing, as it were, on the Discord about this camera and all the new things I've been tinkering with for it. So it's so much fun. That was a mattress just being walked down my street. Okay. The other piece of news that we have is that as of this month, within a matter of days in fact, it is my 4-year anniversary of starting the Patreon. So you might wonder why I'm celebrating 4 years as a big number instead of 5. The answer is that Patreon reminded me. To celebrate that, there's a great many things that have gone down in the past 4 years and whatnot, but to celebrate that, if you are a patron between the 18th and the 31st of this month, you will get a specially made custom postcard from me, written and signed by me, photo taken by me using this new camera. That sounds like I'm putting a lot of credit to my photography capabilities, and I will not remotely classify myself as an expert in this, but the last 4 years at the very least should show you I do have some degree of skill in cinematography and camera work and whatnot, so, don't... Again, it probably won't be a magnificent quality postcard, but it will be a postcard, and it will be a nice little thank you for supporting the work, as it were, in the past 4 years, and hopefully into the future. And again, that is open to both current patrons and anybody that drops in that window. It doesn't matter how much you pledge to the Patreon, it doesn't matter how long you pledge to the Patreon. If you are a patron between the 18th and 31st, you will get a postcard. Guarantee. Oh, right. Okay. So, there is some news in my industry, and I would be remiss if I did not address this particular piece of news in my industry. So, apologies in advance if there's any fans current of the Yogscast. I'm not gonna pass any judgment on you if you are a current fan of the Yogscast. I am, a large portion of my fandom overlaps with the Yogscast. I get it. But what I'm about to say will be quite harsh regarding the Yogscast, and that is not remotely criticism on you, but I have been a vocal proponent for better practice and performance and behavior in the content creator industries, as it were, for many years, so a lot of this will come as no surprise. But yeah, this is not... I apologize in advance if this upsets you. If you'd like to just skip to the schedule, by all means go ahead, but this is gonna get... kind of, yeah. So, but as I say, no, this is not reflecting upon you, this is just reflecting on the Yogscast. So, let's walk back a little bit, and yes, I've written this down, there are so many words to say. Earlier this year, it came out that Matthew Meredith, aka Kafcast, then a Yogscast member, one of the youngest, in fact, had been using his content and administration privileges to groom people for sex. He was then summarily deplatformed, and I believe is still 100% MIA. His Patreon's down, his Twitter was gone, his channel hasn't updated since that event, Twitch is, like, completely erased, so... yeah, no idea what's going on with him now, but dude got what he deserved. And personally, like, for me, personally, I mean this I mean on a literal note, this one really stung, because I actually liked the guy because he cultivated a fairly wholesome public persona, evidently. And I actually thought he might have been, like, a step in the right direction for the Yogscast, and now I kinda want to punch the guy. After that, this started a kind of windfall, there was a big push now for actual, oversight and inside the Yogscast, so they started investigating over things, and they put out a call for anyone who'd had a negative experience with their creators and whatnot. This then led to Mark Turpin, aka Terps, voluntarily stepping down from his position as CEO, following the revelation that he'd been contacting community members for illicit purposes, including several underage women. He has a wife and child, and that is honestly only a side note here, because you shouldn't need a wife and child to know that that's a bad idea, but, you know. And here's the big one. Chris Sykes, aka Shin, has now stepped down, ostensibly voluntarily, but I trust that about as much as I would a politician's Twitter account, from the company following further investigation into allegations that he'd contacted fans for illicit purposes ranging from hookups to nudes, at one point even compromising the safety of other employees by revealing the hotel they were staying in. These are my notes, by the way, I'm not drawing from anywhere else. Now, these allegations date back as far as 2012, and we know very well that these were not new to them. Okay, first of all, yay, progress. They're actually making, strides to change things over, and they're actually addressing concerns that people have. Good. Secondly, screw you all. You don't get medals and trophies and applause for doing the semi-right thing 7 years late. And you certainly don't get it after very plainly, clearly, and on documentation evidence covering it up. You were made aware of this years ago. You chose actively to do nothing. Other content creators in your organization made sure you knew about this, and you're even live on camera, on record, telling people to, just F off with these allegations. You clearly knew all of this, and you did nothing for 7 years. You don't get kudos for that. You don't get kudos for doing the bare minimum. As I said when I started into this little segment, I've been a vocal proponent for oversight of YouTubers and content creators for years. I don't really put that into the vlogs much, but you've seen that on my Twitter a lot. And the reason is that my account is tiny. My content creation, footprint, as it were, is minuscule compared to people like Markiplier, compared to people like Jacksepticeye, compared to people like the Yogscast. And I know for certainty that there is a good dozen people that have stepped back from their suicidal, inclinations and ideations because of my content. Now, the Yogscast are a group with a 1,000,000-strong fan base, comprised very heavily of children and underage people in general. Can you imagine the damage that they can inflict by just being careless? So we have to be held to account. We have to have consequences for our behavior and our actions because we have too much power. And I make that sound like we're rich and famous celebrities, and in a way it doesn't matter if we are, because we are something that people are choosing to put onto their channels and their, TVs and their computer screens to, intake. We are entertainment. And what is in our entertainment affects us emotionally, and if it happens to be negative, then it's going to cause problems. And if it happens to be that someone that we look up to, regardless of their actual scalings elsewhere in the world, is doing horrible things, then it's going to have a dramatic effect upon us. So we need to be held to account. We must be. We cannot simply be allowed to blithely do what we want. Now, for the Yogscast in particular, and again, I'm not talking about the fan server, just the Yogscast, they have a severe record, and really, it wouldn't take much for this to be a severe record, but they have a fair bit to it, of hiring, enabling, and even aiding and abetting sexual predators. Literally, the 3 people that I just listed. That isn't something that should just be casually swept away because they finally did the bare minimum. There's not really a lot that should make you just forget about that. We have to bear that in mind. This is a company with a colossal audience, dominated by children, and a record of hiring and even conspiring to obfuscate the actions of sexual predators in their ilk. So, yay! Good on you, Lewis, for finally doing the bare minimum. I'm not going to forget what you did, and what you've continued to allow to happen. And neither should any of you. And with that out of the way, onto the schedule. On Thursday night at 9 PM BST, we have more Midnight Warframe, where we are continuing to grind through nodes whilst the Nightwave screws us over with enemies we can't kill. Then on Friday at 9 PM BST, we have more Friday Night with Dead by Daylight. And on Saturday at 7 PM BST, we have more Dungeons and Dragon Hats, where as paths diverge ahead of the trio, which route will they take? Followed, of course, with the Carousel at 9, discussing what they did, eventually. And we close out the week on Tuesday with 9 PM BST's Building Blocks, continuing our work adding mostly utilities and fun things. And videos you might have missed for the week. We have an instance of Dailies by Daylight where Susie of the Underpowered Legion is given a challenge made even less pleasant by the state of the perk ecosystem. And we have an episode of Just the Basics where we are building the business end of Red Circuit production and asking deeper questions about what style of Factorio content people want to see. And onto the section of the vlog where I do questions. So, visit ye thine sacred and treasured cave of questions, and enter thine scroll or parchment, and we'll see if it gets visited by a wizard. I don't know where this analogy is going any further, but yeah, if you want to ask me a question, drop it in the comment section down below, and it might get answered next week. I do pick and choose, and I imagine there's gonna be a few after that little segment. Our first question of the week comes from Princess Firefly. What is your biggest fear? I have 2 answers to this, because I have some fears that seem almost definitely to be just from my family line. and one that's definitely me. So my family in general has big fears of spiders and needles. I am afraid of both, as a consequence. Needles are horrific. I hate them. You will have a lot of trouble getting one into me for any purpose. But generally speaking, eventually I won't say warm up, but I guess acquiesce might be the phrase here. So eventually I will actually be able to get, like, injections and blood taken and all sorts, but just give me a moment. Spiders, on the other hand, no. So I'm gonna rate spiders as my biggest fear there. For non-inherited fears, though, there's a lot of things in the world that are worth fearing, and that are quite right to fear. But I'm going to call my biggest fear that isn't just straight from my blood, Alzheimer's disease. There's no history of it in my family. To my knowledge, there's no probability that I'll get it. But there's always a first, and it utterly horrifies me, the possibility that I can just be functional for the most part, but parts of my cognition are just going to start dropping away into a void, and I won't even, after a point, know that it's happening. I won't even know the people that I care about anymore, and that is an existential terror for me. So, spiders, Alzheimer's disease. Two biggest fears. There you go. Faum Gaming asks, what are your favorite Minecraft mods? There's gotta be a list here, because I've done so much modded work. Witchery is an obvious one. I love Witchery. It had some very innovative new effects to it. It's a shame it hasn't really updated past 1.7, but it very much laid out a bunch of things, and you had to go through different routes and stuff, but you could combine and contrast the two, and it was really a lot of fun. And then, sort of working in tandem with that, there was Applied Energistics, a very different mod, very different kind of end of the spectrum, which was, here is mechanics, here's all of the gears and the cogs, you get to make the clock work, and make it tick and sing, and it's wonderful. I love that kind of, I love that kind of mechanism. And beyond that, replay mod. Love replay mod. I love replay mod so much I've made entire series with it. And it has very much spoiled me, because it is literally technology that was developed for, like, shooting Avatar and The Hobbit. So, yeah, it's great to have access to something remotely like that. And it's gonna make it a little hard adapting to real-world kind of filmography, and, well, cinematography, I should say, like that. But, oh, so much fun. And that's all that I have for today. So I hope you've all enjoyed, despite the news, but it is important that we actually talk about this. We can't just ignore everything. And I shall quite probably have much more consistently happier news next week, so hope you've all enjoyed.